My hands trembled as I locked the office door behind Mrs. Patterson, my last client of another exhausting Tuesday. Dr. Layla Alexander, licensed psychologist, 32 years old, and completely empty inside despite helping others find their way for nearly a decade. The irony wasn't lost on me. "You look tired, Layla." My reflection in the darkened window showed blonde hair pulled back too tightly, blue eyes rimmed with fatigue. When had I become this hollow version of myself? The drive home to my sterile downtown apartment felt longer each night. Stockton's winter rain drummed against my windshield, matching the rhythm of questions I couldn't answer. Why was everyone else's happiness so clear while mine remained elusive? Another successful day of fixing broken people while staying broken myself, I whispered to my empty living room. Across town, Bella Cook pressed her palms into her final client's shoulders, working out knots that mirrored the tension in her own chest. At 29, her brunette hair always smelled of lavender oil, and her brown eyes held warmth that clients craved but she couldn't seem to give herself. "That should help with your stress, Mr. Williams. You have magic hands, Bella. My wife keeps asking when you're settling down." The question hit like it always did. Still looking for the right person, she smiled, but her heart ached with familiar loneliness. Her apartment above the massage studio felt suffocating. Steam from her evening shower fogged the mirror, and she traced absent patterns in the condensation. 29 and still playing house by myself. Thursday morning brought an unexpected email that would change everything. The humanitarian organization's message glowed on my laptop screen. Guatemala Volunteer Program. Medical and mental health support needed. My finger hovered over the keyboard. Guatemala. 3 months helping people who truly needed it, far from the comfortable prison I'd built in Stockton. Damn it, Layla. When did you become such a coward? I clicked submit before rational thought could stop me. Bella stared at the same email forwarded by her college roommate. 3 months using her skills where they mattered, in a place where loneliness might transform into purpose. What's the worst that could happen? She asked her reflection. Her application submitted with surprising ease. 2 weeks later, my suitcase lay open on my bed, filled with practical clothes for Guatemala's rural climate. My business partner, Dr. Thompson, thought I'd lost my mind. 3 months of unpaid work? Layla, you're throwing away established clients. Maybe that's exactly what I need to throw away. His disapproval meant less than it should have. Nothing felt permanent anymore except this growing certainty that staying would slowly kill whatever spirit I had left. Bella's goodbye party at the spa felt surreal. Colleagues wished her well while secretly questioning her sanity. Sarah, her ex-girlfriend from 2 years ago, called unexpectedly. "Guatemala? That's very you, Bella. Always running toward the next adventure." "It's not running. It's moving forward." "Same thing, isn't it?" The conversation left her unsettled, but her bags were packed, and her heart was committed. My last night in Stockton, I stood at my bedroom window watching rain streak the glass. Tomorrow I'd board a plane toward uncertainty, leaving behind everything safe and predictable. Here's to stupid decisions. I raised my wine glass to the empty room. Somewhere across town, Bella packed essential oils and massage tools, her hands already imagining the healing they might provide for people who couldn't afford luxury spa treatments. Neither of us knew we'd booked the same flight to Guatemala City, or that our separate searches for meaning would intersect in ways that would reshape everything we thought we knew about love, purpose, and the courage to rebuild broken hearts. The plane tickets sat on our respective nightstands, promises of transformation neither of us dared to fully imagine. Guatemala's humid air hit me like a wall when I stepped off the plane at Aurora International Airport. My careful blonde hair immediately rebelled against the moisture while I struggled with my oversized duffel bag and fumbled through basic Spanish phrases that sounded nothing like my practice sessions. "Excuse me, do you know where the volunteer transport meets?" The airport chaos overwhelmed my organized mind. This wasn't the controlled environment I'd navigated for years in Stockton. Here, colors seemed brighter, voices louder, and my professional composure felt paper-thin. Bella emerged from customs looking like she belonged. Her brunette hair caught the light as she effortlessly conversed with a local family, her hands gesturing in ways that transcended language barriers. I watched her laugh at something a child said, and something tightened in my chest. Natural warmth radiated from her as she helped an elderly woman with directions, then turned to scan the crowd. Our eyes met across the terminal, and time stuttered. "Are you with the medical volunteer program?" Her voice carried traces of California sunshine. "Dr. Layla Alexander. Psychology. Bella Cook. Massage therapy." Her handshake lasted a moment longer than necessary, and I found myself cataloging details. The calluses on her palms that spoke of skilled hands, brown eyes that seemed to see everything, the way she stood like someone comfortable in her own skin. The drive to base camp stretched through mountain roads where jungle pressed against windows and my city-trained anxiety spiked with every curve. Bella sat beside me, pointing out birds and chatting easily with our driver in Spanish that put my textbook phrases to shame. "How long have you been studying Spanish?" I asked. "Since high school." "You?" 3 weeks, mostly medical terms. Her laugh made something flutter in my stomach that I hadn't felt in years. Base camp consisted of converted shipping containers and canvas tents arranged around a central dining area where volunteers from various countries shared meals and stories. During orientation, I learned we'd been assigned to the same project, establishing a community health center in a village 2 hours away. "Perfect," Bella smiled. "We can coordinate our approaches." The first night, exhaustion from travel and altitude hit hard. I lay in my narrow bunk listening to unfamiliar jungle sounds, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Every muscle ached from the awkward plane seats and bumpy transport. "Can't sleep either?" Bella's voice drifted from the next cot. "Everything hurts. Roll over." Before I could question the wisdom, her hands found the knots in my shoulders through my thin sleep shirt. Professional fingers worked with practiced precision, and I bit back an involuntary sound of relief. "Better?" "Much." The word came out breathier than intended. Her touch lingered for just a moment before she pulled away, and I found myself missing the contact immediately. Morning brought our first trip to the village, a collection of concrete blockhouses and tin roofs nestled between coffee plantations and steep hillsides. Children ran to greet our jeep while adults watched with cautious curiosity. "Buenos dias," I attempted, then immediately stumbled over the next phrase. Bella stepped forward, her Spanish flowing naturally as she explained our purpose. Within minutes, she was surrounded by women eager to show her their aches and pains, their trust instant and complete. I stood awkwardly to one side, my expensive psychology training feeling useless in the face of their immediate physical needs. These weren't clients scheduling appointments in comfortable offices. These were people who worked from dawn to dusk in fields and kitchens, their bodies telling stories of hard lives that my textbooks never covered. "They want to know if you can help with nightmares," Bella translated for an older woman whose Spanish was too rapid for me to follow. "Yes, I think so." The woman smiled and took my hands, speaking directly to me despite the language barrier. Her eyes held pain that needed no translation. That evening, as we planned the next day's activities by lamplight, I found myself watching Bella more than I should. She'd braided her hair after her shower, and droplets still clung to her neck. When she leaned over the medical supply inventory, her shirt shifted, and I forced my eyes back to my notes. "Something wrong?" "Just tired." "You did well today. Connection doesn't always need words." The compliment warmed me more than it should have. We were colleagues, nothing more. Professional partners in humanitarian work. So why did my pulse quicken every time she smiled? Our third week fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously comfortable. Mornings started with shared instant coffee and planning sessions that stretched longer than necessary. Bella had a way of tilting her head when she listened that made my carefully constructed thoughts scatter like leaves. "The trauma counseling sessions are working," I said, reviewing my notes. "But I think combining them with your bodywork approach might be more effective." "Holistic healing. I like that." Her approval shouldn't have mattered so much. We'd developed an unspoken system. I handled the psychological aspects of recovery while she worked on releasing physical tension that often trapped emotional pain. Watching her hands transform rigid shoulders into relaxed curves became my favorite distraction. "You're staring again," she said without looking up from her massage oils. Heat flooded my cheeks. I was thinking about treatment approaches. Sure you were. The teasing in her voice made my stomach flip. This wasn't how professional partnerships were supposed to feel. Evening conversations had evolved beyond work discussions. Under Guatemala's brilliant stars, she told me about her childhood moving between foster homes, how touch had become her language of safety and comfort. I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone, the loneliness of being the therapist everyone expected to have all the answers, the way helping others had become a shield against examining my own needs. When did you know you preferred women? The question slipped out during one of these late-night talks. College. You? I'm still figuring that out. Her brown eyes studied my face in the lamplight. Figuring out is okay. Something shifted between us that night, an acknowledgement of possibility that made every casual touch electric. Saturday brought the village's monthly celebration, a festival of music and traditional dancing that transformed the quiet community into a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Women wore embroidered blouses while men played guitars and drums that echoed off the surrounding mountains. You have to dance, insisted Maria, one of the mothers I'd been counseling. She grabbed my hands and pulled me toward the central area where couples moved to lilting melodies. I don't know the steps. Feel the music. But feeling had become dangerous territory. Especially when Bella appeared beside me, her hair loose around her shoulders and her smile brighter than the string lights overhead. May I? She extended her hand. The traditional dance required partners to move in close circles, hands changing positions in patterns I couldn't follow. Every time Bella's fingers brushed mine, my breath caught. When the music slowed and drew us closer, her body fit against mine like we'd been designed for this moment. Layla, she whispered, her face inches from mine. I know. The kiss happened so naturally that questioning it seemed absurd. Her lips tasted like the fruit punch we'd been drinking, soft and sweet and perfect. Around us, the celebration continued, but the world contracted to the space between heartbeats where everything made sense. We broke apart when the song ended, but her hand remained in mine as we returned to the edge of the crowd. Neither of us spoke about what had just happened, but the air hummed with new understanding. Later that night, we walked the perimeter of base camp, under a canopy of stars more brilliant than anything Stockton ever offered. The kiss hung between us like a bridge we hadn't quite decided to cross. This complicates things, I said finally. Does it? We work together. We live in the same city. I've never what? Been with a woman. She stopped walking and turned to face me. And that scares you? Everything about this scares me. Her fingers traced the line of my jaw, feather-light but burning. Good scared or bad scared? I don't know the difference anymore. This kiss was different from the one during the dance. Deliberate instead of spontaneous, hungry instead of tentative. Her hands tangled in my hair while mine discovered the curve of her waist, and every cell in my body suddenly understood what I'd been missing. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the question in her eyes was clear. My tent or yours, she whispered. Bella, we don't have to do anything but sleep. But I don't want to sleep alone tonight. Neither did I. Though admitting that felt like stepping off a cliff without knowing what waited below. Her tent was identical to mine but somehow felt warmer, more lived in. She'd strung solar lights around the interior and arranged her few belongings with care that spoke of someone who made homes wherever she landed. We lay on her narrow cot facing each other, fully clothed but sharing space that felt intimate beyond measure. Her fingers traced patterns on my arm while I memorized the way lamplight played across her features. What happens when we go back to Stockton? I asked. I don't know. What happens here? Whatever we want. Her honesty stripped away my need for certainty, for plans and protocols. In Guatemala's embrace, surrounded by people who lived moment to moment, maybe wanting was enough. The morning after our first night sharing Bella's tent, everything felt different. We moved around each other preparing for the day with a new awareness, careful not to brush hands as we reached, for supplies, hyper-conscious of every glance and smile. Coffee? She offered, holding up the instant jar. Please. Her fingers lingered when she handed me the cup, and I realized we were both testing boundaries neither of us had mapped before. Our work partnership had evolved beyond professional collaboration into something electric. When I counseled Maria about her husband's drinking, Bella would position herself nearby, her presence grounding me. When she worked with elderly Miguel's arthritis, I found reasons to observe her techniques, mesmerized by the way her hands coaxed tension from stubborn joints. "You two make a good team," Father Rodriguez commented after we'd successfully helped a family work through trauma from last year's mudslide. Complementary approaches. If only he knew how complementary we'd become. The village children had adopted us as their favorite entertainment, following us around and teaching us Spanish words we couldn't find in textbooks. Little Sophia especially loved braiding flowers into Bella's hair, while chattering about her dreams of becoming a nurse. "She reminds me of my younger self," Bella confided, as we watched Sophia demonstration her flower-arranging skills on a patient doll, always wanting to fix things. What happened to that little girl? She learned that some things stay broken. The sadness in her voice made me want to promise that not everything had to remain damaged. But I'd learned enough about both of us to know empty reassurances wouldn't help. Thursday brought our most challenging case yet, a teenage boy named Carlos, whose nightmares had become so severe he'd stopped sleeping entirely. His mother wept as she described his screams that woke the entire household. "Traditional approaches aren't working," I admitted to Bella after our third unsuccessful session. "He needs something different. Let me try." I watched her work with Carlos, her hands finding pressure points that seemed to unlock whatever had been trapped inside him. As his body relaxed, words finally came. He spoke of older boys who'd hurt him, shame he carried like stones in his chest. "Can you help him with the psychological processing?" she asked quietly. Together, we created a treatment plan that combined my counseling techniques with her bodywork. By week's end, Carlos was sleeping through the night, and his mother blessed both of us through grateful tears. "We're good together," Bella said as we filed our notes that evening. "Professionally. Is that the only way?" The question hung between us like challenge and invitation. We'd been dancing around deeper intimacy for days, sharing tender moments but pulling back before crossing lines we couldn't uncross. Friday night, the medical team celebrated another volunteer's birthday with locally made wine and guitar music that drifted across base camp like a lullaby. Bella wore a sundress I'd never seen before, yellow fabric that made her brown eyes glow amber in the firelight. "Dance with me," she said, extending her hand as someone started playing a slow ballad. This time, when we moved together, there was no pretending it was innocent. Her body curved against mine while her breath warmed my ear, and every nerve ending sang with awareness. "Layla, yes. I want you to kiss me again. Here? In front of everyone? Especially in front of everyone." Her boldness amazed me. While I'd spent 32 years carefully curating my image, she moved through the world claiming space for her desires without apology. Our second kiss tasted like wine and possibility. Around us, conversations continued and music played, but I felt exposed and exhilarated simultaneously. When we broke apart, several team members were smiling knowingly. "About time," laughed Dr. Sarah, the team medic. The sexual tension was getting ridiculous. Heat flooded my cheeks, but Bella just grinned and pulled me closer. Later, we walked the perimeter path that had become our private space for difficult conversations. Moths fluttered around solar pathway lights while jungle sounds created a symphony of night creatures. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How different this feels from anything I expected." "Good different? Terrifying different. Amazing different." She stopped walking and turned to face me fully. "Layla, I need you to know something." "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." The words hit like lightning, illuminating everything I'd been too frightened to examine. Love. Not companionship or partnership or physical attraction, but love that rewrote the story I'd been telling myself about who I was and what I wanted. "I think I'm falling in love with you too." This kiss was desperate, months of careful distance collapsing into hunger that surprised us both. Her hands tangled in my hair while mine discovered the curve where her waist met her hips, and coherent thoughts scattered. "You're tent," I whispered against her lips. "Are you sure?" "I've never been sure of anything in my life. But I'm sure of this." Inside her tent, solar lights cast everything in golden warmth. She moved slowly, giving me space to change my mind, but certainty had replaced fear. When her fingers traced the buttons of my shirt, asking permission with every touch, I answered by reaching for the zipper of her dress. Her skin was soft as silk beneath my palms, and she made small sounds of pleasure that drove rational thought completely away. We discovered each other with reverent slowness, hands and mouths mapping territories that felt both foreign and familiar. The narrow cot barely contained us as we moved together, finding rhythm that felt like coming home, to a place I'd never known existed. Afterwards, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, while I stroked her hair and tried to process what had just happened between us. "Any regrets?" she asked quietly. "Only that it took us this long." Our final week felt different, electric with love we could no longer hide and bittersweet with the knowledge that Guatemala was ending. Bella and I moved through our daily routines with new intimacy, hands finding excuses to touch during medical consultations, sharing glances that spoke entire conversations. "2 more days," she said over morning coffee, her voice carrying weight neither of us wanted to acknowledge. "Don't think about it." Hard not to. But thinking about Stockton meant confronting everything we'd discovered about ourselves in this jungle cocoon. Here, loving her felt natural as breathing. Back home, with my conservative practice and her spa clientele, everything would become complicated again. Thursday afternoon brought our last major case, setting up the permanent clinic that would serve the village after we left. Dr. Rodriguez and I worked inside organizing medical supplies while Bella coordinated with local women to establish ongoing massage therapy protocols. "The earthquake season has been quiet this year," Rodriguez mentioned, checking his watch. "Usually we have at least minor tremors by now." As if summoned by his words, the ground beneath our feet lurched sideways. Coffee mugs crashed to the floor as the building groaned ominously around us. Through the windows, I watched trees sway like grass in impossible wind. "Get under the doorway," Rodriguez shouted, but his voice was swallowed by a rumbling that seemed to come from the earth's core. The second tremor hit harder, buckling the concrete floor and sending medical equipment flying. I scrambled toward the entrance looking for Bella when the ceiling began to cave. "Bella!" I screamed, but dust filled the air as structural supports snapped like twigs. Rodriguez pushed me toward what remained of the exit as chunks of concrete rained down. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was Bella's yellow shirt disappearing beneath a cascade of debris. When consciousness returned, we lay trapped in a pocket of space no larger than a closet. Bella's body pressed against mine in the suffocating darkness, her breathing shallow but steady. My left shoulder throbbed where concrete had clipped it, but she seemed unhurt. "Are you okay?" I whispered. "Think so. You?" Bruised, but breathing. Our pocket of survival was maybe 4 feet by 3 feet, with barely enough height to sit upright. Dust particles danced in the single shaft of light that filtered through gaps in the rubble above us. The sound of rescue voices seemed impossibly distant. "How long do you think we've been down here?" "Hard to tell. Maybe an hour?" My watch had stopped working, its face cracked from the impact. Time became measured in heartbeats and shared breaths in air that tasted metallic with concrete dust. "I'm scared," I admitted, something I'd never said aloud in my adult life. Her arms tightened around me. "Me too." We rationed the single bottle of water that had somehow survived the collapse, taking tiny sips that barely moistened our throats. Bella had grabbed her small emergency kit, which contained protein bars that became our lifeline as hours stretched into eternity. "Tell me about your first kiss," she said during the darkness when voices from above had faded. "You mean before you?" "Before me. Tommy Morrison, 8th grade, behind the gym during a school dance. It was terrible." Her laugh echoed strangely in our confined space. "Mine was Rebecca Santos, junior year of high school. I thought I was being rebellious." "When did you know it wasn't rebellion?" "When I realized kissing boys felt like acting in a play I didn't audition for." We talked through the night, sharing stories we'd never told anyone. My parents' divorce that taught me love was temporary. Her foster care experiences that made her wary of depending on others, dreams we'd abandoned and fears we'd never examined. "Layla?" "Yeah?" "If we don't make it out, don't." "I need to say this. These 3 months with you have been the happiest of my life. Tears I'd been fighting finally broke free. Don't talk like that. I love you. Not just the physical stuff, though that's amazing. I love how you listen to people like their problems matter. I love that you're brave enough to come to Guatemala even though it scared you. I love how you make me feel like I'm worth something. You are worth everything. We kissed in that suffocating darkness, tasting dust and desperation, and love that felt too big for the small space containing us. Her hands found mine and held tight as we listened to sounds of machinery growing closer. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. When we get out of here, don't let fear make us go backwards. What do you mean? Don't let Stockton convince us this was just a Guatemala thing. The promise stuck in my throat because I could already feel my defensive walls rebuilding, preparing for the judgment and complications waiting back home. But looking at her face in the dim light, seeing trust and love and hope despite our circumstances, I found courage I didn't know I possessed. I promise. Good. Because I'm not giving you up without a fight. 18 hours after the earthquake, voices grew louder above us. Machinery scraped against concrete as rescue workers cleared debris piece by piece. When the first shaft of real sunlight penetrated our pocket, both of us started crying. 2 people here, a voice called in Spanish, both alive. They pulled us out slowly, carefully, into blindingly bright afternoon sun. Medical personnel swarmed immediately, checking for injuries and forcing oxygen masks over our faces. But through the chaos, Bella's eyes found mine and held. We were alive, we were together. And Guatemala had tested our love in ways Stockton never could. Stockton's familiar skyline greeted us like a stranger wearing a friend's face. After 3 months in Guatemala's vibrant chaos, California's organized grid system felt sterile and confining. Our flight had been delayed in Houston, giving us extra hours to process what returning home really meant. Different world, Bella said, staring out the airplane window as we descended. Same world. We're the ones who changed. But change felt fragile as we collected our luggage and prepared to separate into our old lives. Standing outside the terminal where taxis waited to carry us to different neighborhoods, reality crashed harder than any earthquake. Call me tonight? She asked. Of course. Our goodbye kiss lasted longer than casual observers might expect from travel companions, but I couldn't bring myself to care about judgment from strangers. My apartment welcomed me with dust and unopened mail, everything exactly as I'd left it, yet feeling foreign. The comfortable furniture and coordinated colors seemed lifeless compared to Guatemala's wild beauty. I stood in my sterile kitchen trying to remember why I'd chosen beige cabinets and matching appliances. The first phone call came before I'd finished unpacking. Layla? Dr. Thompson here. We need to schedule a partners meeting immediately. His tone suggested trouble. Is everything all right? We'll discuss it Monday. Just know that some concerns have been raised about your extended absence and its impact on patient continuity. The conversation left me unsettled, but I pushed anxiety aside to call Bella. Her voice sounded different, surrounded by familiar walls instead of jungle acoustics. How's readjustment going? I asked. Weird. My landlord repainted the building while I was gone. Now everything smells like fresh primer instead of home. We talked for 2 hours about mundane details that felt significant in their ordinary complexity. Neither of us mentioned the obvious question, what happened next between us in a city where discretion mattered, and professional reputations carried weight. Monday morning arrived with October rain that made Guatemala feel like another lifetime. My practice office looked smaller than I remembered, diplomas on walls proclaiming expertise I wasn't sure I still possessed. Mrs. Patterson, my twice-weekly client for 5 years, barely looked up when I entered. You look different, she observed. Different how? Happier. Less controlled. Her assessment surprised me with its accuracy. The partners' meeting convened at noon in Dr. Thompson's mahogany-paneled conference room. 3 colleagues sat around the polished table with expressions that suggested an intervention, rather than a welcome-back gathering. Layla, we're concerned about your recent choices, Thompson began without preamble. My volunteer work? Your lifestyle choices. Several patients have expressed discomfort with rumors about your personal relationships. Heat flooded my face. In a city the size of Stockton, gossip traveled faster than fact. Someone had seen our airport goodbye, or noticed pictures from Guatemala, where Bella and I looked more than friendly. My personal life doesn't affect my professional competence. Unfortunately, perception matters as much as reality in our field. Dr. Martinez leaned forward with practiced sympathy. We're not asking you to change who you are. We're asking you to be discreet. Discreet. The word tasted bitter. 3 months ago, I might have agreed, might have chosen professional security over personal truth, but Guatemala had rewired something fundamental in my approach to living. I'll consider your feedback. It wasn't the capitulation they expected, and their discomfort showed. Bella's readjustment proved equally challenging. The upscale spa where she'd worked for 4 years suddenly felt pretentious and hollow. Clients who'd once appreciated her intuitive touch now seemed to scrutinize her interactions differently. You're distracted today, complained Mrs. Whitmore after a massage session that didn't meet her exacting standards. I apologize. I'm still readjusting from my travels. Perhaps traveling changes people in ways that aren't always beneficial. The comment stung with implied criticism that went beyond professional performance. Word had apparently spread about her relationship with the local psychologist, and judgment came wrapped in polite disapproval. Her supervisor called a meeting Thursday afternoon. Bella, we need to discuss your recent performance reviews. Several clients have requested different therapists. Because of my work quality? Because of concerns about your personal associations affecting the spa's family-friendly atmosphere? The euphemism was clear. Her sexuality had become a liability in Stockton's conservative business environment. We met for dinner that evening at a quiet restaurant outside the city center, somewhere we could talk without familiar faces monitoring our conversation. Bella looked exhausted, her usually bright energy dimmed by workplace stress. They're making it clear that being with you comes with professional consequences, she said over untouched pasta. Same here. My partners used words like discreet and appropriate professional boundaries. So what do we do? The question hung between us like a trap with no good escape. We could retreat into careful friendship, preserving our careers while sacrificing what we'd found in Guatemala. Or we could fight for authenticity while risking everything we'd built professionally. I don't know. 2 weeks passed in careful choreography. We talked daily but saw each other rarely, both wrestling with fears we'd hoped Guatemala had healed. I threw myself into work with renewed intensity, as if professional excellence could prove my worth regardless of personal choices. Bella took extra shifts and avoided conversations that might reveal too much about her private life. The distance felt like slow suffocation. Everything in Stockton reminded me of her. The massage studio near my office, the park where we'd planned to have picnics, the future we'd imagined building together before reality intruded. You're withdrawing again, she said during one of our increasingly strained phone calls. I'm being practical. You're being scared. The accusation hit home because it was absolutely true. Guatemala Layla had been brave. Stockton Layla was reverting to old patterns of self-protection through isolation. Maybe scared is the smart choice. Maybe scared is what kills everything worth having. The conversation ended badly, with neither of us willing to bridge the gap fear had carved between us. November brought rain that seemed determined to wash away everything Guatemala had given me. Bella and I had settled into a pattern of careful distance, texting instead of calling, meeting for coffee in public spaces where intimate conversation felt impossible. I was reviewing patient notes Thursday evening when my office phone rang with an unknown number. Dr. Alexander? This is Sarah Bell. I'm a friend of Bella's. The name meant nothing until she continued. Her ex-girlfriend. I'm in town and was hoping we could meet. My stomach dropped. I'm not sure that's appropriate. Please. It's about Bella's well-being. She's told me about your relationship and I think you should know some things about her past. Against every instinct screaming warnings, I agreed to meet at a downtown cafe the next afternoon. Sarah Bell arrived exactly on time, and I understood immediately why Bella had been attracted to her. Tall and elegant, with sharp features and perfectly styled black hair, she commanded attention without effort. Thank you for coming, she said, extending a manicured hand. I know this is unusual. What did you want to discuss? Bella's pattern of falling for unavailable women, therapists, married women, anyone who comes with built-in barriers to real commitment. Heat rushed to my face. I don't think you understand our situation. I understand perfectly. She fell for you in Guatemala where everything felt intense and temporary. Now you're back in the real world where her feelings become inconvenient. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you two spent a night together? Gone on a real date? Introduced her to your colleagues as your girlfriend? Each question hit like a physical blow because they exposed truths I'd been avoiding. Since returning to Stockton, I'd kept our relationship carefully hidden, protecting my professional reputation, while asking her to accept shadows instead of sunlight. Bella deserves someone who chooses her openly, Sarah continued, not someone who treats her like a secret to be managed. The conversation haunted me through a sleepless weekend. Was I really any different from the unavailable women in Bella's past? Was my fear of professional consequences just another form of emotional unavailability? Monday brought clarity in the form of gossip. Mrs. Patterson mentioned seeing me with that attractive brunette from the massage studio and wondered if I was developing new therapeutic partnerships. The comment was innocent enough, but it confirmed that people were noticing and drawing conclusions. Tuesday, I decided to tell Bella about Sarah's visit before someone else did. We met at the park where October leaves crunched under our feet, and the distance between us felt like miles instead of inches. Sarah's in town, I said without preamble. I know. She called me yesterday. Why didn't you mention it? Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Her defensiveness sparked my own. How am I supposed to react when your ex-girlfriend ambushes me to discuss your relationship patterns? What patterns? Falling for unavailable women. Creating relationships that can't survive in the real world. Bella stopped walking and turned to face me, her brown eyes blazing. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what this is anymore. This is me loving someone who's too scared to love me back completely. This is me waiting for you to decide whether I'm worth fighting for or just a Guatemala fantasy you're ready to forget. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time we acted like partners instead of strangers who used to know each other? I couldn't answer because she was absolutely right. Fear had turned me back into the controlled, distant person Guatemala had helped me shed. Sarah wants to meet with both of us, Bella said finally. Why? She says she has something important to tell us, about why she really came to Stockton. Thursday evening found us sitting in Sarah's hotel bar, tension thick enough to cut. Sarah ordered wine while Bella and I nursed coffee, neither willing to relax our guard. I need to apologize, Sarah began, her composed facade cracking slightly. I didn't come here to win Bella back. I came to make amends. For what? Bella asked. For the way I treated you. For making you believe that wanting commitment meant asking too much. She took a sip of wine before continuing. I've been in therapy for the past year, working through my own issues with intimacy and emotional availability. I realized that every criticism I made about your neediness was really about my own fear of being needed. My psychology training recognized genuine remorse, but protective instincts remained on high alert. You were never too much, Bella. I was just too little. Too scared of real partnership to give you what you deserved. Bella's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. Why are you telling me this now? Because I heard about your relationship with Layla and recognized the same patterns, but this time, they're coming from her instead of me. The accusation stung because it contained uncomfortable truth. I came here to warn her not to repeat my mistakes. To tell her that if she's not ready to love you completely, she should let you go before she damages your ability to trust someone who can. Sarah stood to leave, but turned back with final words that would echo long after she'd gone. Bella deserves someone who chooses her proudly. If you can't be that person, Dr. Alexander, please stop wasting her time. After Sarah left, Bella and I sat in silence that stretched like a chasm between us. Finally, she spoke without looking at me. She's right, isn't she? About what? About you not being ready to choose me completely. The question demanded honesty I wasn't prepared to give. I don't know. Then we have a problem. Because I can't keep loving someone who treats me like a part-time girlfriend. She stood to leave, and panic flooded my chest. Bella, wait. I'm done waiting, Layla. Either you're with me or you're not. But I won't be your secret anymore. 2 months passed like winter spreading through my bones. Bella's silence echoed louder than any words she could have spoken, and I threw myself into work with desperate intensity, trying to prove to myself that professional success could fill the hole her absence had carved in my chest. December brought a caseload that would have challenged me on my best days. 3 new trauma cases, a couple in crisis therapy, and ongoing sessions with clients whose lives felt more manageable than my own. I worked late every night, reviewed notes until my eyes burned, and went home to empty silence that felt like punishment. You look terrible, Mrs. Patterson observed during what had become our routine Tuesday session. When's the last time you took care of yourself instead of everyone else? I'm fine. No, you're not. You're helping me process my divorce while you're obviously heartbroken over someone. Maybe it's time to be honest about what you're running from. Her words hit harder because they came from someone who'd watched me maintain professional composure for 5 years. If my carefully constructed facade was cracking enough for clients to notice, I was in worse shape than I'd admitted. The holidays made everything worse. Stockton's downtown filled with couples sharing hot chocolate and planning futures while I navigated empty evenings with takeout and case files. Every massage studio I passed made my chest tighten with memories of brown eyes and healing hands. I'd started driving different routes to avoid passing Bella's apartment, but Stockton wasn't large enough to completely escape reminders. The bookstore where we'd planned to browse together, the restaurant where we'd imagined celebrating milestones, the park where autumn leaves had witnessed our last real conversation. My partners noticed the change too, though they misinterpreted its source. You seem more focused lately, Dr. Thompson commented during our monthly review. Less distracted by outside influences. I'm committed to maintaining professional standards. Excellent. Perhaps that unfortunate phase is behind you. If only he knew that my professional focus was actually elaborate avoidance of a pain so sharp it threatened to crack my carefully maintained composure. Christmas Eve found me alone in my office, reviewing files while most of the city celebrated with family and friends. Snow fell outside my windows, transforming Stockton into a winter wonderland that felt more like a prison. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister in Portland, but I couldn't summon energy for holiday pleasantries. That's when I heard voices in the hallway outside my office. The building should have been empty, but someone was talking in loud, urgent tones. I cracked my door to investigate and froze at the familiar sound. Sarah Bell stood near the elevator, phone pressed to her ear. No, Bella, you can't just leave without talking to her. This is exactly the pattern we discussed in therapy. My heart hammered against my ribs. Leave? Where was Bella going? San Francisco isn't running away. It's starting over. There's a difference. San Francisco. The words hit like ice water. She was leaving Stockton, leaving me, starting fresh somewhere I couldn't accidentally encounter her at coffee shops, or glimpse her walking down familiar streets. Fine. But you're making a mistake. She loves you, even if she's too scared to show it properly. The conversation ended, and Sarah noticed me standing frozen in my doorway. Dr. Alexander, working late on Christmas Eve? What did you mean about Bella leaving? Sarah studied my face with the calculating look I'd learned to distrust. She got a job offer in San Francisco, management position at a high-end wellness center. She's flying out tomorrow to finalize everything. Tomorrow? New Year's Day, she starts her new life, away from all the painful memories and people who can't appreciate what they have. The pointed comment struck home, but panic overrode embarrassment. Where? What flight? Why? So you can make some grand gesture at the airport like a movie? She's done waiting for you to figure out your priorities. Please, I need to know. Something in my voice must have conveyed desperation, because Sarah's expression softened slightly. United Flight 847. Leaves at 2:30. But Layla, if you're not ready to choose her completely, don't go. She can't survive another half measure. I spent Christmas Day in a fog of panic and regret, replaying every conversation we'd had since Guatemala, Every moment I'd chosen professional safety over emotional honesty. Sarah was right about my patterns, about treating Bella like a secret to be managed instead of a partner to be celebrated. By evening, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. I drove to Bella's apartment building and sat outside for hours, watching her windows for signs of movement, trying to summon courage to knock on her door. But what would I say? That I finally realized what I was losing after it was too late? December 30, first arrived gray and cold, matching my internal landscape. I'd planned to spend New Year's Eve alone, but solitude felt unbearable. Instead, I found myself driving toward the airport without conscious decision, pulled by something stronger than rational thought. The departure board confirmed my worst fears. United 847 to San Francisco, on time for a 2:30 departure. I had 3 hours to decide whether courage was stronger than fear, whether love mattered more than professional reputation, whether the woman who'd taught me to trust my heart was worth fighting for. I sat in the airport parking lot watching passengers wheel suitcases toward terminals, families reuniting and separating in endless cycles of hello and goodbye. Through the windshield, planes lifted off into gray sky, carrying people toward new beginnings while I remained frozen between past and future. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Thompson. "Happy New Year, Layla. Looking forward to a productive year ahead." Productive, professional, safe. Everything I'd thought I wanted before Guatemala showed me what living actually felt like. At 2 o'clock, I finally understood what I had to do. I ran through the airport terminal like my life depended on it, weaving between holiday travelers and luggage carts, while my heart hammered against my ribs. Gate 24 appeared ahead, and I could see passengers boarding the San Francisco flight. "Wait!" I called out, pushing past a family with strollers. Bella stood in line, boarding pass in hand, her brunette hair catching the fluorescent lights. She looked tired, older somehow, as if the past 2 months had aged her in ways Guatemala never did. When she heard my voice, she turned with an expression of disbelief. "Layla? What are you doing here?" "Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your life." "My mistake?" Her brown eyes flashed. "You're the one who chose professional reputation over love." Other passengers stared as our voices rose, but I couldn't care about public scenes anymore. Not when everything that mattered was about to board a plane to California. "You're right. I was scared. I was stupid. I let fear convince me that loving you would cost me everything, when really losing you cost me everything." "Now boarding Group C," the gate agent announced. Bella looked at her boarding pass, then back at me. "It's too late, Layla." "It's not too late, unless you get on that plane." "And then what? We go back to secret meetings and careful distances? I can't live like that anymore." I dropped to one knee right there in the middle of Gate 24, pulling out the ring I'd bought that morning in a moment of pure panic and absolute certainty. "Then let's not live like that. Marry me." Gasps echoed around us as travelers pulled out phones to record the scene. Bella stared down at me with tears streaming down her face. "You're proposing in an airport?" "I'm proposing wherever you are. Marry me, Bella. Let me spend the rest of my life choosing you openly, proudly, completely." This is crazy. Guatemala was crazy. Falling in love in 3 months was crazy. But it was also the sanest thing I've ever done. She pulled me to my feet, and I couldn't read her expression through the tears. Around us, applause started as strangers invested themselves in our drama. "Say something," I whispered. "Yes, you ridiculous woman. Yes." Our kiss tasted like tears and hope, and second chances that almost slipped away. When we broke apart, the entire gate area was cheering, and the flight attendant was shaking her head with amusement. "I guess I'm not going to San Francisco," Bella called out. "Good thing," the attendant replied, "because that was the most romantic thing I've ever seen." 6 months later, we stood in that same park where autumn leaves had witnessed our lowest point, surrounded by friends and family celebrating our commitment. I wore white while she chose yellow, the color that had caught my attention in Guatemala's celebration where we first kissed. "I can't believe you proposed in an airport," she said during our first dance as wives. "I can't believe you almost got on that plane. I was hoping you'd come." "You were?" "Sarah promised she'd tell you if you were smart enough to ask." I spun her under the string lights we'd hung between oak trees, marveling at how naturally she fit in my arms. Remind me to thank her. Later. Right now, I just want to dance with my wife. The word still sounded foreign and perfect on her lips. Wife, partner. The person who chose to build a life with me despite my talent for self-sabotage. Our joint wellness center had opened 3 months ago, combining psychology and massage therapy in a space that felt like Guatemala's healing energy transplanted to California soil. Clients responded to our integrated approach, and my former partner's disapproval mattered less than I'd expected. Any regrets? I asked as the song ended. Only that it took us so long. Same answer you gave me in Guatemala. Some answers don't change. We'd bought a house 2 blocks from the center, with a garden where we planned to grow vegetables and a kitchen where we cooked meals that tasted like home. Sunday mornings found us sharing coffee and planning workshops that combined our skills in ways neither of us could achieve alone. Dancing's over, she said as our guests began gathering around the cake table. Ready for the rest of our lives? With you? I'm ready for anything. The cake cutting involved more laughter than ceremony, and our first bites as married women tasted like vanilla and possibility. Later, as we cleaned frosting from each other's faces, I caught sight of our reflection in the reception hall mirrors, 2 women who'd found love in an unexpected place and fought to keep it despite every obstacle fear could construct. What are you thinking about? She asked. How different everything looks from here. Good different? Perfect different. That night, in our bed surrounded by wedding gifts and flowers from the celebration, we made love with the desperate tenderness of people who'd almost lost everything worth having. Her hands mapped familiar territory with new significance now that legal papers confirmed what our hearts had known since Guatemala. I love you, Mrs. Alexander Cook, I whispered against her shoulder. I love you too, Mrs. Alexander Cook. The hyphenated name had been her idea, a way to honor both our identities while creating something new together. Like our marriage, it represented compromise and commitment in equal measure. As she fell asleep in my arms, I listened to Stockton's night sounds filtering through our bedroom windows. Distant traffic, settling houses, the gentle rhythm of a city at rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and old fears, but tonight we were exactly where we belonged, together, chosen, unashamed of the love that had transformed us both. Guatemala had taught us to trust our hearts. Marriage was teaching us to trust our future. And every day forward would be another chance to choose love over fear, partnership over isolation, courage over comfort. I was finally completely home.